Hey, Rep students, how are we doing, guys? Listen, let's give it up one more time for our band who just led us in an awesome night of worship. They did a lot of prep and planning, and not just the band. We actually have a production team in the back that spent a lot of time making sure things sounded good, making sure things look good, all of the lights and stuff that you see, all of that takes a lot of work. So we want to thank all of them for all the hard work that they put into it. But I am excited to be here, and I get the privilege of following up on Daniel, who is back there, who he spoke last week. Who thought he did a good job last week? Yeah. And so he make me look bad. He's coming after my job. And so, but he did a really great job. And I'm excited to be continuing in our series tonight, our series called It's Personal. And this series is all about how Jesus makes things personal. And man, I often reflect as I'm preparing for messages and what we're talking about my childhood and how it relates to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I know for me, I was thinking back when I was a kid, and there's this show I used to watch called Dragon Ball Z. Does anyone know what that show is? Maybe some of you. And so when I grew up, I used to watch this show called Dragon Ball Z. And if you don't know what it is, the best way I could describe it to you is superhero karate. It's basically just superhero karate. It's the best way I could describe it to you if you don't know what it is. But Dragon Ball Z is cool today, right? Maybe some of y'all watch it, things like that. 15, 20 years ago, Dragon Ball Z was not cool. And if you watched it and openly talked about it, people would make fun of you. And so I remember people like myself who did who doesn't enjoy some superhero karate, who would watch this and things like that. I would not talk about it because I didn't want people to think I was weird or to think things about me, but it was something I was really excited about. And I remember I would find other people who also liked it after much investigation because they also were not talking about it because it was not cool, it was not mainstream. And it was so exciting to find someone who liked the same things that I liked, who shared the same interest, who was engaged in the same things. And so it was just this amazing feeling. And maybe you've been there before. Maybe you have things that you are interested in that other people just aren't interested in. You don't even like talking about it or bringing it up because you feel people might treat you differently or think of you in a certain way. And when we have to hide the things that we like, the things that we care about, the things that we're passionate about, it keeps us from being known by the people around us. It keeps us from being known and being who God made us to be. And God has made us as people to be people who are known. He has made us as people to be known. And he has wired us that way, wired us to want relationships, wired us to want to know other people and be known ourselves. And this is true for us, and it's also true for our boy Zacchaeus, who we're going to be hanging out with in this series. And Daniel did a great job last week talking about Zacchaeus, right? And if you know the song, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Wee little man was he. Zacchaeus was a little short dude who climbed up a tree because he wanted to see Jesus. So we're going to recap a little bit of that this week and then jump into our message. So we're going to be in Luke 19, verses 1 through 4. It says, he, being Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich, and he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. It's funny because this passage focuses a lot on what Zacchaeus is doing in this moment, but you don't often know what Jesus is doing in this moment. Jesus is entering the city of Jericho, and this is a very big deal. People are excited about Jesus. There is a Jesus party going on as Jesus is entering Jericho. People are gathering, and Zacchaeus wants to be a part of the Jesus party, right? But like we said, he is a little bit too short, and so he has to climb up a tree. And what we find out is that in the midst of this Jesus party that everyone wants to be a part of, that everyone is gathering around, Jesus decides to shine the spotlight on Zacchaeus instead. And I feel like there's a couple of reasons it's so hard for Zacchaeus to be a part of this. Obviously, it said he was short, like that is well stated. There's these details that the Bible decides to point out, and for some reason, like Luke wanted you to know that Zacchaeus was short. There was no doubt about it, right? He did not want to leave anything to question. This guy was not going to be making it in the NBA. He was short, and he had some height problems and some difficulties. He probably had some athletic ability because of that. But I feel like there might be something else going on here, that the reason that Zacchaeus had to climb up that tree is because he wanted to seclude himself from everyone else. Because of who Zacchaeus was and because of what Zacchaeus did, Zacchaeus probably wasn't invited to the Jesus party that was going on. Zacchaeus probably wasn't invited to everything. And so before someone excluded Zacchaeus, he went ahead and secluded himself and went to a place where only he was. And maybe you've been there before. Maybe you've been in a point in something you were excited about, but because of the people that you were around, because of what was going on maybe in someone else's life or your life, because you did not want to have to deal with rejection, you chose to seclude yourself before anyone could exclude you. And that's where we find ourselves today. And in one of Jesus's biggest moments, like this was the Jesus party, instead of making it about himself, he made it about Zacchaeus. And maybe you felt that way before. Zacchaeus mattered to Jesus, and because Zacchaeus mattered to Jesus, the things that Zacchaeus cared about mattered to Jesus as well. And you see this by what Jesus says next in Luke 19:5. It says, and when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. Jesus right here stops what he is doing, looks at Zacchaeus way up in that tree, and says, hey, come down. We're going to hang out at your house today. Like, we're going to go eat a meal. I am inviting myself over in this moment. And what he is communicating, he say, I am inviting myself into your world right now. The people around him would not have liked that. Like I said, Zacchaeus was not invited to the Jesus party. Jesus chose to invite Zacchaeus, or invite himself over to Zacchaeus' house, because the people in there would not have spent time with Zacchaeus. They would not have been over there. He knew no one wanted to spend time with Zacchaeus the cheat, Zacchaeus the liar, Zacchaeus the tax collector. And so he stops what he's doing and makes things personal for a second. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, about how Jesus makes things personal. And it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. It is personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. And in this moment, he knows what matters to Zacchaeus. And when he is in an environment where no one wanted to spend time with him, where he was not invited, Jesus invited himself over. Jesus chose to take the spotlight off of himself and put it on Zacchaeus. And the people around them have went ahead and decided that Zacchaeus was not someone worth inviting. He was not someone worth spending time with. Everyone just saw the things that Zacchaeus was doing and went ahead and wrote him off. No one spent the time to figure out who Zacchaeus the person was. No one spent the time to figure out what are the things that Zacchaeus likes. I mean, what is his life like at home? Does he have his family? What's going on? They just went ahead and wrote him off. And yet you see this in verse 7 as well. It says, and when they saw it, talking about Jesus inviting himself over, they all grumbled, he has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Listen, students, behind every person's story is simply a person, and that person matters, and it matters to Jesus, and it should matter to us as well. Jesus invites himself over. He invites himself into this man's world, into this man's story. And you don't know what someone's story is. It might be the story of the decisions that they've made, and some good, some bad, that have led them to where they are. It might be the story of how they arrived at that point. Maybe they made some decisions that hurt them. Maybe they made some decisions that caused them to have dysfunction. He wanted to spend time with Zacchaeus, the person, and get to know him. because he knew when no one else would spend time with Zacchaeus, the thing that mattered to Zacchaeus was someone that cared about him. And I don't know what the things that matter to you are. I don't know what in your world are the things that you care about. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's your friends or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Maybe it's just simply food. Maybe like even right now in this very moment, you are simply thinking about what you're going to eat when you get home, what type of snacks you have in your purse at this very moment, why you do not have more zebra cakes in your life. I don't know what those things are for you, but maybe that's what's important to you. Maybe for some of you it's cars, like you're already planning what car you're going to have when you turn 16 or 17, whenever you get a car. Maybe it's video games. And you might not have thought that anyone cares about the things that you care about, but what Jesus is teaching us here is he cares about those things because he cares about you. And what we see in this passage is the way Jesus made it personal is by stopping his interests for the interest of others. Jesus stopped what he was doing in that moment. Jesus stopped in the middle of the Jesus party to say, hey, I'm going to go spend some time with Zacchaeus because no one else is. I'm going to spend some time with Zacchaeus because that is what he needs. That is what matters to him. And he did it for Zacchaeus. And he does it for us as well. And the reason it's so important is that, we talked last week about him using Zacchaeus' name. Using a name communicates value. Using a name communicates importance, that they're worth remembering. And he did that for him. He also made an investment and spent time with him. And I can think about for me, I know I have a mechanic. You guys probably don't have a mechanic yet, but one day you might have a mechanic that you take your car to. But for the life of me, I'm pretty sure that my mechanic does not know my name. And even when I text them, I'm like, hey man, I think something's going on with my car. You think you can check this out? He's like, hey guy, how you doing? Right? It could be a combination of that I have a twin brother and he doesn't want to mess it up, but I have never heard him in the last 6 years. I've given him all of my car business, which has been quite a lot, and have spent time with him 4 or 5 times a year, engaging with him in conversation and going to his house or wherever I was dropping my car off. He's always called me Guy. And so that's the opposite of what Jesus is doing here in this moment. Jesus also spent time, he shared a meal with Zacchaeus in this moment. He shared a meal with him and said, hey, I'm going to invest in you as a person. Sharing a meal is a sign of friendship. Sharing a meal is a sign that they have value, that they're worth spending time with, that they are simply a friend. And Jesus did that for Zacchaeus in this moment. And listen, Jesus was trying to communicate one thing clearly to Zacchaeus, and it's the same thing he wants to communicate to us today. And I want you to lean in for a second, students, and hear this. Jesus was saying, Zacchaeus, I see you. You have value as a person. You are worth spending time with. I care about you, and because I care about you, I care about what you care about. And maybe right now you're evaluating your relationships in your life and you're saying, most people in my life would not say those things about me. Most people in my life would not say that to me. But that's exactly what Jesus is saying here in this moment. You are worth it. You are valuable. And I'm not sure what that looks like. Not only is Jesus saying that's how he feels about us. Hello, hello, hello. Not only is that what Jesus is saying about us, but that's what Jesus is saying he wants us to say to others. That's what Jesus is saying. How he wants us to interact with the other people in our lives, the people he has put around us. If we want to look like Jesus, we should care about the things that the people we care about. And maybe for you, you're like the people in the crowd. You're like, well, you don't know what this guy's done. Like, you don't know what this person's about. You don't know the things that they say. Like, I don't want to spend time with this person, right? This person is not invited to the party. And Jesus is saying, hey, behind all the stories you hear about that person, there's an actual person there that has feelings, that has a life, that has experienced things maybe you have never experienced, and they are worth knowing. Their name is worth knowing. The things they care about matter. Maybe it's the people in your classrooms. Maybe it's the people on your sport teams. Maybe it's the people that ride your bus or live in your neighborhood. I don't know who it is, but most people don't believe these things about themselves because no one's willing to say it to them. No one's willing to step across the yard. No one's willing to walk to the other side of the field. No one's willing to sit in the seat with that person just to simply say, you're worth it. And Jesus is saying that's exactly what it looks like. And if you want to see another thing Jesus said about what this looks like, in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, he says, do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart is also. What Jesus is talking about here is he's saying, hey, your treasure is the thing you care about most. For this particular passage, it was literal like wealth, literal money. But it could be whatever you spend your time on, whatever you care about the most, whatever you spend your all of your time doing. It could be where all of your interest goes, where all of your resources go. That's what your treasure is in here. And if he is saying, hey, if the only thing you care about with your time, with your resources, with your energy is that those things come back to yourself, not only will you lose it, but you may lose your heart in the process, your heart for people, your heart for the people that God cares about. And he's saying it is not worth it. Zacchaeus only cared about money for himself, and it left him in a place where no one cared about him. But in this moment, in this interaction with Zacchaeus, Jesus spent time with Zacchaeus to show him money wasn't the only thing that mattered. It was the simple fact that Jesus spent the time to spend time with Zacchaeus that showed him that he was worth it, that he mattered. Just a simple meal at Zacchaeus' house. Listen, when we invest time, energy, and resources into others' interest, we show them that they matter. Listen, students, we show them that they matter. And what Jesus is saying here is that the people in your schools and the people on your bus and the people in your neighborhoods and the people on your team, and you maybe have never thought about this before, but they matter. They matter to Jesus, and they should matter to you too. And there might not be anyone in their lives telling them that right now. And maybe that's you. Maybe no one in your life is telling you that. Can I tell you what the response is when someone steps out of their way to show you that you matter? In Luke 19:6, this was Zacchaeus' response. It says, so he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. When I read about secluded Zacchaeus hiding up in a tree so he didn't have to be around people, I don't ascribe that to a joyful Zacchaeus. It was probably a Zacchaeus full of shame. It was probably a Zacchaeus full of fear. Yet here, simply by Jesus choosing to spend time with him, it shows him that he matters. And listen, students, God wants to speak to you today and say you have a family. Listen, you matter. You're a son. You're a daughter. You are not alone. You are seen. You are worth it. Not only do you matter, but the things you care about matter, and the people that God has put around you matter. And maybe today he's simply asking you to take the step. Like we talked about last week, use someone's name and tell them they're worth remembering. And spend some time with them to tell them not only that they matter, but the things that they care about matter. And he cares about you too. And you might only think he cares about church things. You might think he only cares about you reading your Bible, and if you're here on a Wednesday night, but he cares about your friendships. He cares about your relationships. Man, maybe you're going through a breakup and you feel like he could care less about it. Can I tell you something? He cares deeply about it. He cares about the things that scare you. He cares about the things that make you anxious because he cares about you. And maybe you don't feel like anyone does in your life, but can I tell you something? He does. And he wants you to do that for others too. Pray with me real quick, students. God, we come to you today, Lord. We are so thankful that you bring us here into this place, that you call us to yourself, and when we feel lost and when we're hiding up into a tree because we don't feel like we're invited to the party, you invite yourself in. You start a new party. You start a Zacchaeus party at our house, and you invite yourself over. And maybe that's where you are today. You feel like you're not invited in. And Jesus is saying you are worth it. And if you don't feel like you're invited to my party, I'll throw one for you. You matter. And the things that you care about matter. And maybe no one's told you that before. And it's simply because he loves you. And maybe today, for the first time, God is speaking to you today and speaking the truth that you are a person of value, that you are a person that matters, and he's speaking truth into places in your life that no one's ever done that before. And maybe you're in here and you know that is true for you, but you haven't been showing that truth to the people God's put around you, and they don't know that they matter. God, help us not only be people that know that truth for ourselves, but share it to others. We love you and we trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, guys. What an awesome night we have had, right?